So the second question tells us to evaluate the effects of a minimum wage on the labor market. So if you were to draw a diagram to show the labor market, it would look something like this. So we'd have price level on this axis, and you can use any of them, but I use RGDP. And so if you were to draw aggregate supply of labor, it would be like this, and aggregate demand for labor would be like this. The reason we use aggregate is because we're looking at the labor market as a whole and not just one specific firm. So the question tells us to evaluate the effects of a minimum wage. So if the government imposed a minimum wage, it wouldn't make sense to put it anywhere below the equilibrium, right? Because then it'd have no effect on the market. They'd put the minimum wage above the equilibrium price in order to raise the minimum wage. So if we call this P1, the equilibrium price, and we call this RGDP1 at the equilibrium, a minimum wage would go above this. So say it would be somewhere around there. And so now that we have our new minimum wage, we'd see that the price given to these workers would be at P2, an increase from P1, and it would go to about this point. But if we go down, we see that this is lower than our RGDP1, meaning that there is lower employment by this much. This is excess supply of labor. There's this many workers that are willing to work at this price but don't have a job. So then if we want to look at the advantages and disadvantages in order to evaluate this, we could say that advantage is that those who are working, so the real wage of the workers will increase. Every worker will get a higher price, P2 as opposed to P1. But the disadvantage would be that there's lower employment, and unemployment is not good in most economies beyond a certain point. So this is this question evaluated.